No meaningful difference in post-match recovery or long-term physical performance when comparing cold water immersion, hot immersion, or even placebo recovery methods. So once again, meh.
Yeah, that's kind of the takeaway here, right?
Yeah.
It's like, meh. Hello and welcome back to the How to Fitness podcast with me, Kate Lyman.
And me, Michael Uja.
And we're happy to be back. It feels like a minute since we recorded, Michael.
I was thinking that. I can't remember the last time. I know we record these out of sync of when we actually post them, but it feels like a little while.
It does. I think I'm like, what has happened since? I don't know. When does this one come out? I also don't know.
Happy
so instead of saying that,
September, October, November, whenever it is, Kate.
I don't even know. Let me first, this is so irrelevant to what we're going to talk about today. But I saved this. I was going to text you this and I saved it for the podcast.
Oh, exciting. Okay.
Why are so many people eating ground beef and bananas? Have you seen this on your feed?
I think I've seen like one or two people eating it.
Oh my gosh.
That's one or two too many people.
I've seen like 10.
Wow. Okay.
Like, it's like this meal that's supposed to taste good. And here's the thing. I'm not going to judge anything for what they eat or what you think it tastes good. But I'm almost judging because that sounds disgusting.
Horrific. Yeah.
Have you seen, like, okay, so it's like ground beef and then they put the banana in the pan. So you're cooking banana, which gross.
Yeah.
I don't think banana should be cooked. And then maybe they drizzle something on top, or is it cottage cheese? I don't know.
Oh, it just made it even worse. I feel like it was one of those things that like some carnivore bro created when he saw his health markers declining and thought I should probably add some sort of nutrients. So let's throw a banana in there.
And that makes sense, but I feel like I've also seen like non-carnivore folks eat this. Anyway, I wanted to know like what the frequency of assault you've experienced.
It's probably also like algorithm. It shows you one video and you probably watched it for a bit too long and it's like Kate loves ground beef and bananas.
Kate really wants to eat this. No, miss me with that. You will never catch me eating that, and I can say never confidently.
Yeah.
But if again, I'm not telling someone it's not good. I'm just thinking I'll never.
It's awful to do it.
But if you're listening, you're like, yes, I eat that frequently. Please tell me, like, what does it taste like? Why?
There we go.
Is it really good, or does the internet just say it's good?
Probably the internet. Like when it puts cottage cheese and everything in a healthy dessert, and it's just not good. I know I've not seen that much of it, so thankfully.
Anyway, I was going to text you that this morning, and I was like, I'll wait. Okay, Michael. Deep dive for you, and you texted me yesterday. You're very excited about this one, which made me really excited about it.
I am excited about this topic. Yeah, I'll go into this in a little bit more depth, but it's a really funny one because we're talking about, of course, ice baths today, or cold water immersion, and it's a topic that people get very passionate about, right? So I was really excited to delve into the research on this one. I know a lot of people personally who love ice baths and shout about how amazing they are. I've always kind of known a bit of the research, but it was quite fun to delve into it to see what's actually being said. So I'm excited for this one today.
Me too. I have done quite a few ice baths, and I can confidently say I never enjoy it, but I like the breathing part, I guess.
Fair.
So I enjoy that, where you have to like regulate yourself.
Yeah, I get that. So I've never done an ice bath, but I've done cold water swimming in Scotland, which is basically the same thing, right? And I know that you always feel amazing afterwards. Whether the actual health benefits are there, who knows? We will discuss that today. But it's people either love it or they're like, heck no, I'm not doing that. It sounds awful. So it's it's a cool topic.
I'm really excited to learn because when it comes to like biohacking tools, this totally fits into like the biohacking camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we say that?
I think so. Yeah, I think it does.
When it comes to like the biohacking categories, like I just don't care to delve in too much to, does it matter? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Like I don't know much. Like I spent a lot of time reading research around nutrition and different areas of like behavior change and whatever. And when it comes to something like this, I'm like, I don't know. Like I literally don't know. I know what people say. Brown fat. anti-inflammatory. I don't
Yep.
immune system response. Like, I don't know, but I'm really excited to learn because I don't know much.
We cover all of that today, Kate. So you're
Yay,
in luck.
teach me.
You're in luck. So before we dive into it, we're going to do our thing that we're really bad at. But I remembered, if you enjoy these episodes, then please can you leave us a review? If you're listening on your phone, jump on there, give us a little review, share it. We now have actually an Instagram page that you can go and follow too. What's the Instagram handle, Kate? Is it How To Fitness
At
Pod?
How To Fitness Pod.
At
Yes.
How To Fitness Pod. We're getting organized, Kate. This is worrying. We're going for it.
Took us 3 seasons, but here we are. And yes, any love you can give to the podcast is so great. We obviously don't do sponsors, right? So we keep our show sponsor free, meaning the work and the funding for the podcast comes from our own pockets. And the best thing you could do to help us is just give it a little share, give it some love.
Well said. Right. Should we dive in then? Should we go for it?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, so today we're talking about something that, according to social media, is either the best recovery tool ever or just another Instagram trend where people sit in wheelie bins full of ice. So yeah, we're discussing ice baths today, or it's often called, as I mentioned, its fancier name of cold water immersion. And you've seen it everywhere from athletes, influencers, Wim Hof breathing his way through frozen lakes. I'm sure, or anyone who's known about cold water immersion, probably aware of Wim Hof and how much of a fan he was of this thing. I also will put a note here that incredibly problematic human being is Wim Hof that we're not going to go into today. However, he is kind of the person that really popularized it recently. I've always been a little bit intrigued about the claims that you see him making, especially when those claims are coming from people that massively financially benefit from telling you how amazing cold water immersion therapy is. So our question today is basically, does it actually work or do anything? Like, will it help you recover faster? Will it make you healthier? Could it even make you live longer? Or are we all just kind of collectively freezing our butts off for absolutely nothing? So today we're going to break down the claims, the science as always, also talk about the risks, and most importantly, how and when cold water immersion might actually be useful for you. Okay, if I'm honest, I was a little bit nervous to cover this topic because of how passionate cold water immersion people can be. I've done social media posts on this in the past, and wow.
It's like people get really offended if you say something about it.
Yeah, if you criticize it or kind of dampen the claims at all, it's almost as if you have taken a dump inside their cold water. You know, like that's the kind of extent of how passionate some people can get. So it's very uncouth. That's how passionate some people get about this. So yeah, it was a topic I was like, I really want to delve into, but also I know it's probably going to annoy some people, but we're going to do it nice and balanced. As always with all of this, all the research that I reference, we're going to plug into the show notes. So all the research nerds can delve into it a little bit deeper. And if you don't like what I say, take it up with the researchers, not me. I'm just reporting what they find.
Don't shoot the messenger,
Yeah,
please. But
Yeah.
that's you all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And have you ever done, sorry, you did say you have done it. Like, what extent
Yeah.
have you done it? Was it just like a few times you dabbled, or was it quite a regular thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, no, not that regular, but when I was back living in Memphis, a friend had a hot and cold business type thing, like one of those mobile ones. It was awesome.
Cool, yeah.
And he'd bring it to the CrossFit gym. And I remember the first time I ran 50 miles, he happened to have it set up after I finished this race, and I did it that day, and I don't know if it helped me or if I was just literally dead to the world anyway, but I slept for 14 hours after. It was really fantastic. And then even just a few months ago with my, I do my KLN team retreats. All our coaches go out and do something. We did a hot and cold thing. Actually, when we got there, the person who ran the hot and cold was like, "Oh, you're all nutritionists. You must know how great this is." And we were all like, "Ah." We're like, this just kind of seemed like a fun activity.
Yeah. It just felt like a laugh, actually.
Yeah, and she was kind of like, yeah, listing off the benefits, and we were all like, yeah,
just
sure.
smile and nod.
Exactly. And not that I'm a hater by any means. And, you mentioned those people who love it so much. I think what I'm curious to know is is there a reason not to be doing it? Because for people who love it, isn't it just okay, fine, go for it. Maybe it's not a miracle, but why not?
We will discuss it. Never. We will feel well equipped by the end of this episode, Kate. Never fear.
Good.
So I just wanted to like touch on like where the trend came from. So first off, like cold water immersion is not new. Cultures around the world have been doing this for literally centuries, like long before Instagram Reels and, as Kate mentioned, the biohackers kind of got their hands on it. So take Scandinavia, for example. Ice swimming and plunging into frozen lakes after a sauna is a long-standing tradition. In Russia, people cut holes in frozen rivers for what they call... I was going to try to pronounce this, but now I'm backing out because I feel like I'm going to embarrass myself. I should have looked up the pronunciation. But it basically translates to walrusing, where they
Oh,
basically
come on,
sit...
Michael. You have to give it a try now.
Morzhevny? Nia? I don't know. I'm so sorry. There's probably people that speak Russian listening to this that are just about to throw their phones out the window. In Japan as well, cold water rituals known as misogi, once again, sorry for the pronunciation, are tied to purification practices. And even in ancient Rome, alternating, like you guys did, Kate, between hot and cold baths was a common practice in the bathhouses. So culturally, cold exposure has always been tied to like renewal, resilience, and health. So it's nothing new. And then fast forward to kind of more modern times in the 80s and 90s were when cold water immersion started creeping back into like professional training rooms. Like rugby teams, football teams were early adopters, looking for any edge that they could get in their recovery practices. And then came the era of like sports science meets pop culture. So like elite athletes like Andy Murray, Cristiano Ronaldo, like different UFC fighters, they all started giving ice baths credit in interviews. And when an athlete says, "This is what I do for recovery," everyone else seems to kind of copy and paste. But the real popularity came when, as I mentioned, like Wim Hof and social media, they really kind of got the ball rolling again. And as I mentioned, Wim Hof created a whole empire on cold water immersion.
Okay, so like I want the tea now. I remember Wim Hof being very popular in my early CrossFit days. I've never like read his books or anything. Like I don't know. I've never interesting to me. But then like I haven't heard about him in a while. So you said he's problematic, and I'm assuming that there's something that happened.
Yeah, there's been lots of claims about abuse from him.
Surprise.
So I don't know them in enough detail to go into depth. I don't want to get sued. However, there has been a lot of abuse claims that seem like they hold up pretty well. So not a good dude.
Surprise.
I'll leave it there. Yeah. And yeah, those went viral.
I kind of thought that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, he had a show here in the UK as well, like mainstream TV.
Wow.
He got a television show here. We took celebrities and got them sitting in ice and taking cold showers and talking about all the health benefits. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. And so then like recovery centers start offering like cryotherapy and plunge pools, and YouTubers start doing videos on it. So it's like part of the fitness world, you know, like you can't get away from ice baths now. I recently don't have it anymore, but had a membership at like a big sports club here, and they have plunge pools there next to saunas. Like it's just, I don't think it's going anywhere despite the kind of lack of research, which we're about to find out in a minute. So yeah. So Kate, I'm going to ask you here a little pop quiz. Like, what claims have you seen around cold water immersion? List them off.
Okay. Converts white fat to brown fat.
Okay.
Increases metabolic activity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's because of shivering or because of something else. I don't know. I'm saying this all like this is what I've heard, but I know nothing.
Yeah.
Heightened immune system response or heightened immune response, decreases inflammation, increases recovery. I think those two are one of the same. Makes you sleep better. I think there's like someone said hormonal, but it's like clarity, like mental clarity.
Yeah,
I think that's it. That's what I know.
You've pretty much nailed all of them. I'm
really
okay. Yeah,
nice.
literally. Yeah,
Nice.
10 points to Kate. Yeah, I was going to list them through here, but you've literally named all of them. So yeah, there's a lot of claims that you will hear from people. However, there's so much nuance around it. So just to kind of put out the statement now, like not all of the claims are equally supported by science, and that's what we're about to find out. So I'm literally now just going to go through all the different claims that you just listed, okay, and tell you like what the bulk of research says to see whether it's nonsense
This
or
is
not.
exactly what I've needed. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, and as I said, like it's quite short and snappy simply because the research is so thin. I just wanted to highlight as well, like really importantly, that yes, there's the lack of research within cold water immersion. So any health claims being made by people need to be taken with a bucket load of salt. That's not to say there's no benefits at all. It's just that any claims, and arguably any criticisms too, they need to be carefully considered. And like if we take the first topic here, for example, how cold water immersion impacts recovery and delayed onset muscle soreness. The meta-analysis assessing the whole research as a whole, there were only 11 studies that could be included with only 3,177 participants. Like it's a pretty small sample size when
Yeah.
that's like the main claim that everyone says regarding.
I'm like honestly so shocked because there's so much money and industry behind this, right? Like people aren't going out to some alpine lake and plunging. Like there's the at-home pools
Yeah.
and freezers and the
Right.
cryotherapy studios and all this stuff. So like I actually feel kind of shocked that that's how thin.
Yeah, it's
is.
seriously thin. And also as well, which pretty much with all health research, as we've spoken about before, Kate, is that there's a huge lack of diversity amongst participants, and it is very male participant heavy. So these are really important things to consider. So if you don't fit that demographic, you also need to be a little bit wary that the findings also might even be less beneficial or even more harmful than is being reported in the literature too.
Do you know in that meta-analysis how the split between male female
I can't remember it off the top of my head, unfortunately. It did say it in there, but
It did
I
say
should
though.
have.
Oh,
Yeah, it did. But it's, as I
I
said,
can
it was
look later.
very, very, very male dominant.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So that being said, we're going to try and mentally park that and look at the evidence to see still like whether there is any benefit here. And the good news first is there is evidence ice bath can reduce delayed onset muscle soreness and help you feel less fatigued for up to 48 hours actually after intense exercise. There is a 2023 meta-analysis that showed small to moderate reductions in soreness and markers like creatine kinase and lactate came down faster due to cold water immersion. But feeling better doesn't always mean performing better. So just because maybe you had a slight dampening of soreness doesn't mean there's necessarily going to be any layover there to your performance. Some studies showed no real improvements at all measurably in performance the next day too. So yes, it might help you reduce muscle soreness a little bit, but that's kind of it on that front. So yeah, because I know in terms of other tools that will help with muscle soreness, massage is a great one and just light movement. So you could always throw in a little bit of cold water immersion depending on what activity you're doing, which we will discuss in a minute too. So yeah, there we go.
Okay, I'm worried this is a stupid question, but in my mind, like an ice bath post-workout feels different to me than like cold water immersion, like sitting in the plunge pool.
This is also
thing.
another issue with a lot of the research, right? So
Okay.
it's trying to define what people were using because every tool that people use is different. Some of the research, they'll call it like cold water immersion or whatever, and it's standing under a cold shower. Others are sitting in a really cold ice bath. So the temperatures also massively vary. Therefore, trying to find out what works and doesn't is really difficult because the research is so thin, once again, on all of those.
Because I'm thinking of like the hot and cold, right? Like the sauna and cold plunge. Like that to me is like a totally different category than I ran a marathon and now I'm going to like sit in an ice bath for my legs, right?
Sure.
I don't know. That's interesting. Okay. So it's like, makes it even a little more convoluted, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I'm like cold shower, like that's a different level entirely. Because your water probably doesn't get ice cold. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. It's a very funny thing reading all the research with all the like different explanations of what they were using as their tactic because it varies really wildly. So then moving on to like strength and muscle gains. If anyone's kind of within the fitness world, you'll probably see that this one gets spoken about quite a lot in terms of strength and building muscle. Regular post-workout ice baths can actually blunt hypertrophy and strength gains. So research on cold water immersion and hypertrophy paints a pretty consistent picture. If your goal is muscle growth and strength, routine ice baths are not going to be your friend if they are done around the time of you doing a workout. So a 2021 meta-analysis found that regular post-workout immersion significantly reduced strength gains across measures like 1 rep max and endurance, and even though endurance performance wasn't harmed. So backing that up, a 2015 mechanistic trial by Roberts et al. Showed why the cold suppressed anabolic signaling pathways like mTOR and reduced satellite cell activity, essentially like turning down the body's muscle building machinery. And the most recent 2024 systematic review confirmed that cold water consistently blunts hypertrophy, with smaller muscle growth seen in the ice bath groups. Those strength outcomes were often less affected. So to put it really simply, if you're chasing size or strength, hopping into an ice bath straight after lifting is going to slow your progress.
That one makes a lot of sense to me, right?
Like that one's
with
pretty
what we know of
definitive
muscle,
by the sounds of things.
And what we know of muscle repair.
Yeah, exactly that. So then moving on to endurance adaptations, so further on the performance side, if you are a runner, cyclist, or triathlete, or just trying to go farther and feel fresher, the research is a little bit more interesting in this. So in terms of aerobic performance, there's no significant impact. A comprehensive meta-analysis reviewed studies where endurance training was paired with routine cold water immersion. This one stated the temperature as under 15 degrees Celsius. And the takeaway was that endurance performance, like time trials, maximum aerobic power, and mean power outputs, was not significantly affected. So they don't harm your aerobic gains in any way, but they also don't help them at all either.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking of like my N=1 experience here, and no part of me has ever really thought of, okay, this is enhancing performance or improving performance. Like I've used an ice bath, which I'm going to call like different than ice cold plunge, I guess, like post long run for pain management. We're talking about pain here, and that's it.
I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like if you are thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to be really sore from this workout, maybe I could do with a little bit of support in not feeling as awful afterwards, then yeah, go for it. But other than that, it looks like it's not going to be doing too much in terms of performance, which is very funny with the amount of people that recommend that we do it post endurance
for performance,
for performance. Exactly that. And then in terms of some signal for short-term power recovery, so even though long-term endurance adaptation isn't boosted, some updates from 2022 suggested that cold water immersion might help particular power measures recover faster. One review noted potential improvements in muscular power performance, muscle soreness, and perceived recovery after high intensity efforts. But once again, very thin on the ground with research there. This final study on this point, just to kind of hammer it home, is a 2025 study of national level soccer players. Feels weird saying soccer. Found no meaningful difference in post-match recovery or long-term physical performance when comparing cold water immersion, hot immersion, or even placebo recovery methods over 15 weeks. So once again, meh.
Yeah, that's kind of the takeaway here, right?
Yeah.
It's like, meh.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for everyone listening how meh all the findings are going to be here, just as a heads up. It's so funny. I was messaging Kate before this episode being like, this is kind of weird. Like, I feel like this should be bigger news, that there's not much news on this.
I just remain, I think I already said this, but like I just remain kind of shocked at how little there is given. I would have thought that like all the people monetizing off of cold water immersion like are also funding more research.
Completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. And I hope more comes out and there is more benefit shown, because the amount of people investing so much money and time into this, I'd be really sad if there wasn't more benefit. But at the moment, I would be very, very wary to recommend it on a grand scale. So in terms of inflammation, another topic that you did touch upon there, Kate, in terms of inflammation, yes, ice baths do reduce inflammatory signals in the short term. However, in the long term, chronic inflammation from exercise is kind of what drives positive adaptation from doing exercise. So despite what social media will tell us, like demonizing inflammation and pushing constantly to minimize its impact isn't always helpful, which I think this just refers back to the kind of like muscle and strength gains aspect. Is if you're dampening inflammation after doing a workout, you're probably going to be dampening your progress. So this is why we say to use ice baths really strategically, not automatically. So yeah, it does help, but very, very kind of marginally or maybe not very helpfully anyway. Immune function, another one that Kate nailed, is so unbelievably shaky. So one large randomized controlled trial had over this one's actually really cool. You'll like this one, Kate. One randomized controlled trial, over 3,000 people that finished their morning showers with 30 to 90 seconds of very cold water. And interestingly, they took 29% fewer sick leave days over 3 months, but there was actually like no difference in how often they actually got sick.
What? Okay.
Yeah. Cool, right? So
Yeah.
the thought process from
Yeah.
this study was they were like, well, maybe it like helps improve resilience or perception of health, but you're not turning yourself into like some superhero germ fighter from it. But I thought it was a really cool piece of research.
That's really interesting. I hope
Yeah.
we're gonna talk on the mental resilience piece. Do you have like more on that in a second?
There is a little bit on
Yeah.
mental health that we will touch on
Yeah,
here, but I also
cool.
just like one other research paper highlighted the kind of whole body of evidence around immune function. And I'm just going to quote from them now because it pretty much sums it up. To our knowledge, no comparative systematic reviews on cold water immersion's effect on immunity exists. A limited amount of previous exploratory evidence shows mixed results on the effects of cold water immersion on immunity, likely influenced by variations in cooling protocols, individual physiological responses, and specific markers of innate and adaptive immunity assessed. So once again, a lot of health claims around immunity, but meh.
The tagline for the episode.
Yeah,
Love it.
there we go. Cold water immersion. Meh. So let's talk about fat loss and brown fat. It's kind of one of the sexiest claims that you'll hear online around ice baths about how it can like activate your brown fat and make you burn calories like a furnace. There was actually a TV show with a well-known TV doctor here who sadly passed away, but he did a kind of deep dive into cold water immersion and burning fat, and he was kind of raving about how great it was. But let's quickly unpack it. So just for people listening, so we know, there's two different types of fat in the body. We have white fat, which is the standard energy stored fat. Too much of it, and yes, we can potentially run into health issues. Brown fat, or brown adipose tissue, this stuff is really metabolically active. It's packed with mitochondria, which are like little, like the power plants inside cells. When brown fat is switched on, it doesn't store energy, it burns it to produce heat, called non-shivering thermogenesis. So for example, babies have lots of brown fat to help keep them warm. Adults keep really small amounts, like mostly around our neck, shoulders, and spine. So cold water exposure does stimulate brown fat, and it is actually really well documented in lots of research papers. And once again, I will link to a few different ones of this in the notes. The colder you get, the more your body recruits brown adipose tissue to help keep you warm. And that means, yes, you do burn more calories during and just after cold water compared to sitting at room temperature. But here's kind of the reality check: is the calorie burn isn't huge, but it's not insignificant. So studies show that the increase in energy expenditure from cold water can be from like 1 to 200 calories a day if you're regularly doing cold water immersion. So it's not nothing. It's not enough to like drive meaningful kind of changes in body fat levels unless you're doing it daily and combining it with decent nutrition and exercise habits.
Honestly, that's more significant than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the number does vary quite a lot. So the kicker, I guess, is most people don't have that much brown fat as adults, so that means it can vary. The super fat burning claims you see on TikTok are quite overstated. Plus, also, which is important to note, is your body adapts. So the more you do it, the less dramatic that calorie burn becomes over time. So yes, brown fat is real. Cold water can switch it on, but is an ice bath going to replace like lifting weights or going for a run? And absolutely not. This is going to be like a tiny bonus, a tiny top up.
This isn't a matter of white fat converting into brown fat, like the beiging that
No.
I've heard of. Like it's more stimulating brown fat to be more metabolically
I
active than it
believe
already
so.
is.
I,
Okay.
I hope I'm not wrong in this, and please anyone message in and let us know if we are. But I think it's like the similar argument of when people think that when they lift weights and they stop, the muscle turns to fat. It's like this common
Right.
myth that happens.
Right.
I'm assuming it's kind of a similar
Yeah.
misunderstanding like that.
I think of our, we did a metabolism episode recently, and we talked a lot about, okay, here's these things that do stimulate your metabolism, right? Like stimulate more metabolic activity. Sorry, it was like drinking cold water and eating spicy foods or whatever, but you're going to adapt quickly. It's like going to do that for a little bit of time, and then it's going to be kind of null and void. And it sounds like the same thing here. We're like, okay, we could, take advantage of more metabolic activity, but then you adapt, and then it's just same old, and now you're just taking time to sit in cold water every day.
Absolutely. And it's very funny, but it's not insignificant once again. So I was actually quite surprised with that one. That was the kind of the bit of doing the research around this episode. I was like, oh, okay, a bit more than I thought. And then the final point from all that we listed is mental health and mood. And this is actually where there is some solid promise. Once again, research, very thin. There needs to be more done on it. But there does seem to be kind of a pretty strong relationship between cold water immersion and mood. So the first finding, cold water immersion, it actually causes a spike in inflammation initially. So right after immersion and still at an hour post-dip, inflammatory markers shot up significantly. It doesn't mean chronic inflammation, but an immediate response to that shock. So that was always just quite an important thing to note. In regards to stress, it doesn't budget right away. And I thought this was quite cool, is immediately like 1 hour after, no impact. 24 or 48 hours later, no impact. But there's like a short-term benefit. So about 12 hours after you do cold water immersion, there is a significant stress reduction. So that cold plunge might not chill you out instantly, but it does, like it could give you a night of feeling great or calming, which could have some real benefit here. Yeah,
Oh,
I thought that was quite cool.
that's cool.
And then what about sleep? So sleep quality improved in several studies actually, and quality of life got a little bump too in lots of the research papers around it. But unsurprisingly, like no consistent benefit across all of the research. Like you might sleep better, you might feel a tiny bit better, but don't expect kind of your life to change because you start doing cold water immersion. Yeah.
I could imagine that, and I have no, I'm just thinking out loud here. I can imagine that taking time for yourself to do something that promotes your health is the magic here, because it's true. We live really busy, overstimulated lives. And if you're taking a few minutes for yourself, even if it's just a few minutes, right, to invest in your own health, even if you think it's doing all these different things, and do some deep breathing, because that's what you have to do when you're in a cold water bath, right? Like that is kind of where a lot of the magic lies. And that's why I wanted to touch on that mental resilience piece. Like I think there is a lot of benefit from being uncomfortable and needing to breathe through discomfort. In whatever capacity that is, right? Like I'm like, okay, if someone asked me like, what do you think the benefits of cold water immersion are? I'd be like, probably that. I don't know. I don't know the rest, but that one makes sense to me. But we can do that other ways too. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's such a good
process.
point, because as I said, I haven't done it kind of since having kids because my mornings are now not free to go for a swim, unfortunately. But like, yes, I used to go and do cold water swimming and I feel great afterwards. But was it the fact that I was having a nice morning at the beach with my friends having a swim, or was it the cold water that made me feel great? Like it's hard to really measure that.
You might have felt good in warm water too.
Exactly. Yeah, we all hung out in a hot tub. I would have felt awesome.
Speaking for myself, I would have felt better in warm water.
So there we go.
Equally invigorated.
So there we go. So before you rush off and buy a chest freezer off Facebook Marketplace, I think we should probably talk about the risks as well, because Kate, no one ever talks about the risks. Like this is just never something you see spoken about. I've started doing, I don't think I've mentioned this on here, have we, Kate? I've started doing a lot of work with BBC Radio Scotland, doing like fitness phone-ins, and they're really fun, really loving them. Last week, there was a lot about cold water immersion, and
oh, wow.
People were really surprised when I started being like, oh, there's not much research, because they just assumed that it was signed, sealed, like this is beneficial. So I really wanted to cover the risks, because there are a lot of them, and there's certain people that shouldn't be doing cold water immersion. But this is never mentioned on Instagram to help sell ice baths. I mean, the first one we should probably mention is something called like the cold shock response. And this happens in the first like 1 to 3 minutes when you hit cold water, especially when it's below 15 degrees Celsius. Your body panics, you gasp involuntarily, your breathing rate skyrockets, your heart rate and blood pressure spike. And for most healthy people, like that will feel uncomfortable, but you can manage it once you learn to control your breathing anyway. But if you've got underlying heart problems, high blood pressure, history of any arrhythmias, like sudden stress can trigger very real complications, even cardiac arrest in extreme cases. And this is why you sometimes hear about tragic accidents in open water swimmers who jump straight into freezing lakes. It's not necessarily the cold itself that gets them, it's like the shock that comes from jumping into the cold water.
Side note, did you ever as a kid go to a hotel and then you'd like jump back and forth from the pool to the hot tub? I just remember my grandma being like, don't do that, you'll die. A child died doing that. The shock, you know?
And she was probably right. You shouldn't be doing that, Kate. So the second risk, of course, is hypothermia. So most people won't get hypothermic in like a short ice bath, but 5 to 10 minutes will feel pretty safe. But if you stay in too long, especially if the water is under 10 degrees Celsius, your core temperature can drop fast. Once your body temperature drops below 35 degrees Celsius, you're in hypothermia territory. So more is not better here. Like staying in an ice bath for 20, 30, 40 minutes is not going to give you like superhuman benefits. It's just going to increase your risk. And then there's just a list of a few other groups of people that shouldn't be doing it. So pregnant women, especially, cold shock can affect circulation and blood pressure in ways we don't fully understand yet. People with Raynaud's syndrome or other circulation disorders can trigger pain or restrict blood flow. People that have nerve damage or neuropathy, or anyone who's feeling unwell or run down or has a compromised immune system, because adding cold stress can be another load that the body doesn't need. So yeah, there's quite a few people that shouldn't go anywhere near cold water immersion. Ice baths can have some benefit, but like any intervention, they come with trade-offs. For the right person in the right context, it might be a useful tool, but for the wrong person, it could be pretty dangerous. So if you ask me, is something missing from a lot of the glossy Instagram reels? Yes. Do we think that people should be better informed before they start advertising these things on social media? Yes. But hey, what do we know, Kate? We're just evidence-based practitioners that get led by research when we work with people, like an idiot.
What do we know? I do want to add, so you touched on this in the beginning, but actually a listener of our podcast had come to me and kind of talked through one of these topics of saying, hey, I would love you guys to do an episode on ice baths and specifically talk about, what the research says for males versus females. And it's like, we don't know. There's not a lot of it. There is a study I'm thinking of that I haven't read, but I will read it and link it in the show notes for us. That was, I think this is recent. I think this is this year, talking about how temperatures could be higher for women, eliciting the same general benefits. And there are more risks of going in those lower temperatures. I think it was like below 15 degrees Celsius for women. Do not quote me on that. I do not. I'm like, Michael has like ironclad evidence here. I'm just kind of thinking of what I think it says.
Sure.
But I want to talk about it because if I'm right, I'll put it in the show notes and I'll make
if
a
it's
little
in the show notes, Kate's
and
nailed
have us
it.
add it in
if
there.
It's not there, pretend it's never happened.
If it's not, ignore me, please.
Yeah, it's funny.
And just think about the fact that we don't know as much about the impact, the benefits, the risks on women's bodies because, surprise, surprise, underrepresented in research.
Yeah, it's quite funny because arguably the biggest benefit of ice baths is the bragging rights on social media, that you can sit in cold water for a long period of time, and the science is just much less dramatic. So yeah, that's kind of a wrap on that topic. I welcome anyone's ice bath stories. Like, did it help you? Was it awful? Let us know on Instagram, and don't forget, please, once again, to hit the review button and leave us a little review for this episode. We welcome your thoughts, don't we, Kate?
Yes, please. Always. I love the conversations we have outside of the podcast in DMs and emails.
Yeah, we've been having loads more recently. It's been really, really nice. Yeah,
it's really fun, right? And also, like, someone will bring up an old episode we've done a while ago and we get to kind of re-engage in the conversation.
And I'm like, did we do that topic? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like 2 years ago. I'm like, I'm pretty shaky there. But I love how much we learn from doing these episodes, from listening to your deep dives and doing my deep dives and everything else. So thank you all for listening.
See you next time.